Well, we are in the period of budget speculation, I suppose. Maybe it starts earlier each year, but also talking a lot about the RBA. Phil Lowe in the headlines. Joining me live is Shadow Treasurer Angus Taylor. Thank you very much for your time. In particular, a bit of attention on Phil Lowe. He's going to front up this week to estimates. We haven't seen him front up this year, though, for a normal speech and questions, for example, at the press club. A lot of Australians want to hear from him. Would it be better to have some transparency to hear from him?
Well, we will hear from him this week at estimates, and that's as it should be, Tom. So he's coming along to that. But at the end of the day, our focus is on the government getting the policy settings right for mortgages and for rising interest rates. We've seen 8 consecutive interest rate increases since the election. Families paying substantially more on their mortgages. That's starting to flow through. This is real pain being felt. And there are things the government can do to take pressure off. We have an independent Reserve Bank, that is as it should be, but the government has to create the context for that. And if the government gets its policy settings wrong, adding spending as it did at the last budget, dropping its commitment to budget balance as it did at the last budget, then it makes the situation worse and it makes it much harder to put down pressure on interest rates.
In general terms, not about this governor, it is interesting that no RBA governor can ever be dismissed or fired or whatever just on performance. So if they're missing the mark on inflation, they just go full term. Is that something that should at least be looked at in the review that's happening at the moment? Do you think?
Well, there's a review going on, and I'm not going to anticipate the outcome of that. But we have an independent Reserve Bank. Labor
sort of like untouchable though, rather than.
Well, Labor can't work out whether they want an independent Reserve Bank or not. I mean, we've had the Assistant Treasurer out last week having a crack at him. Bill Shorten out having a crack at him on several occasions. But the truth of the matter is, that Labor needs to focus on what it can do. I mean, this is a Labor Party who will look for someone to blame for everything. If it's not Vladimir Putin, it's the Reserve Bank governor. They need to focus on the things they can focus on, and there's much they can do to take pressure off interest rates and inflation.
So far, we had their first budget where they banked about 81% of the savings, and the rest was spent on things such as childcare, which were election promises.
Now, hang on, Tom. They added $114 billion of spending at this last budget versus the previous budget. They're the numbers.
Well, they are the
4 numbers over the 4 years of the budget. $114 billion of spending. And let me make a wager here and now that will go up again at the next budget. Worse than that, and that's significant. They've dropped their commitment to budget balance. Now, that commitment to budget balance has been there since the Charter of Budget Honesty was put in place by Peter Costello. They've dropped it. Clean, gone. No focus on budget balance anymore. It's out of the...
Well, Jim Chalmers has spoken about a few things with this upcoming budget, including any new spending offset by savings. That's a responsible approach.
Let's see how much extra spending there is in the budget.
Well, then there'll be commensurate savings, though. Isn't that a good?
Let's see. We saw
that was a coalition sort of approach, wasn't it? What was the Scott Morrison line? A policy washes its own face.
We saw $114 billion of extra spending. We saw.
That's not net, though, is it?
Hang on. That is extra spending. They spent money.
But they saved as well.
Well, that's money. No, that is extra spending. That's on the bottom line of spending, Tom. It went up that much. Now, don't listen to the Treasurer's spin here. That's how much it increased. We'll see how much it increased this time. But it's no coincidence at the same time he dropped his commitment to budget balance. And as I say, even Wayne Swan didn't drop the commitment to budget balance. But Jim Chalmers has done it. And this is exactly the wrong time to do it. This is the time when we need a government that is focusing on a pathway to budget balance.
Energy prices. Labor did make this pledge of cheaper prices, which your side of politics did notice. I'm sure you'll hold them to that. What about what they could have done differently? Not so much the 2025 pledge, but what could they have done differently so far, do you think?
Well, the first and most important thing is stick to that commitment, which clearly they haven't done. I mean, they've accepted now prices are going up, people are going to pay more in their bills, and they've dropped that commitment, which was a centrepiece commitment.
Did they? Where did they drop that commitment?
Well, have you heard a single Labor parliamentarian maintain that commitment? Certainly the Prime Minister. Has given up the ghost
as of a few months ago.
Well, have you heard the Prime Minister?
But just so far, that is 2025, and you're entitled to say, have they kept it? But that's quite a way off in the distance. What about so far? What could they have done differently in your view?
Well, the Prime Minister hasn't mentioned it, recommitted to it once since the election. But the key, as always, is more supply in the marketplace. More supply in the market. Now, they've gone with a half-baked capacity mechanism, which restricting what fuel sources can be used to get more supply into the market. They're discouraging extra supply of gas coming into the market. If you want to have sustainable lower prices in any commodity, you've got to get more supply into
Treasury
the market.
says it'll bring down power prices, though.
Well,
Do you
power prices
disagree
are
with that?
Power prices are going up, Tom.
Yes, so far. But Treasury says from this intervention, power prices will come down. 41% New South Wales, 46 Queensland, 48 South Australia, I think mid-30s for Victoria. That's a positive move, isn't it?
People's bills are going up.
I know they have so far, but this is a forward estimate.
This is looking forward. People and the government is expecting bills to go up, Tom. To go up, not down. Now, the Treasurer and others can spin it any which way they like. They can look for excuses wherever they can find them. That's what they do. But the truth is that when people receive their bills over the coming 12 months, those bills will be going up as they have been. And that's the expectation. And there's nothing that the government has done that's going to change that.
Well, one of the things
we saw in the Herald Sun today, I mean, an extra $1,000, around $1,000 on people's energy bills coming through.
One of the things
we know this is coming.
One of the things Labor says is it inherited a bit of a path of higher prices. We did learn last week in questions answered on notice, the industry department this is the market offering that comes out each year that came out after the election, that a final decision regarding the date on which the AER must release its final offer, determination offer, was made by the then Minister of Industry, Energy and Emissions Reduction. That was by you to bring it out after the election. Why did you make that decision?
There's nothing new in any of this. Look, the truth of the matter is Labor knew what I knew. There was a draft report out in February. And the fact of the matter is they committed to a $275 reduction. They've now dropped that commitment and prices are going up. And the right answer, Tom, as always, if you want to get prices down, get more supply in, they've gone with this half-baked capacity mechanism that isn't going to have the impact and downward pressure on prices that was originally intended. They've given up the ghost on the gas industry. They're discouraging supply, and we're hearing daily from the gas industry about that discouragement of supply. And meanwhile, the Prime Minister is refusing to recommit.
But just to clarify on that, I mean, that's an important point. You say there was a draft offer out there, but the final...
There was a draft report out.
The final official one, which gets a lot more headlines than a draft, was delayed. And you made that decision to delay.
I hadn't seen that report. And that was recommended.
You hadn't seen
that was recommended by the experts, Tom. So we've been through this many times, including with you, and nothing has changed.
With respect, though, this is the first time we've heard evidence from the industry department. So again, they said the final decision was made by the then minister. That was you. So you did make that final decision to delay it from May 1 until after the election.
It was recommended by experts.
Which experts?
And I hadn't seen the report.
I'm not saying you'd seen the report, but that you told the department to delay bringing it out.
Yeah,
so you did that.
It was supported by experts, asked for by the industry, and there'd been a full consultation process.
What do you mean experts?
Look,
you made the decision.
The head of the AER for one. So Tom, the fact of the matter is,
the head of the AER told you to delay it until after the election.
Tom, we've been through this before. I've already explained that to you on multiple occasions. The fact of the matter is, Labor does not want to take responsibility. Labor saw what I saw back in February. It was exactly, the draft report was out well ahead of this. And Labor refused to change their commitment to the $275 price reduction, despite the fact that the Ukraine war had started. And they are now running away from it at 100 miles an hour.
I did ask...
And that is the reality of the situation.
I did ask the Minister last time about that pledge. I'll do it again. I haven't been able to get him on lately, so I'm doing my best. But
well, I look forward to hearing him make that pledge. Unconditional, as they did before the election. And I'd really love to hear it from the Prime Minister.